Good. Hello. Good morning. Good evening. It's a hackathon. So it was a hackathon. So it's normal to say good morning. Now, good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. la Conseillère d'État. It's a great pleasure to have you tonight. It's a much more official setting than the hackathon we had in this weekend. So welcome to the closing ceremony of the Sustainable Finance Hack, a project that has been possible thanks to a lot of great partners at here, starting with Lombard-Odier, the Canton and Republic of Geneva, the Crédit Agricole Indo-Suez Wealth Management, RAM Active Investment, Carbon for Finance, coming from Paris. Nicolas Nigli was asking me of what is the international part in this hackathon, so thank you, Carbon for Finance. And last but not least, the Geneva School of Economics Management, which has supported this hackathon as part of a career development strategy. Our Vice Dean Salvatore Di Falco will talk about that in the panel. So thank you, everyone. Beyond these financial partners who financially contributed, we had a lot of other partners helping us, not least Sustainable Finance Geneva. Thank you all. Thank you, Sustainable Finance Geneva, for organizing Building Bridges and for being here around today. Now, the hackathon, to make it very short, this was 24 hours of work at Campus Biotech, still nice setting, 65 participants, out of which 30% of students and 70% of professionals. 9 challenges that we tackled in an amazing atmosphere. I left the campus at 2:30 a.m. and there were still people working, so this is a sign of good energy. We will have 3 favorite projects that were voted from. I have no clue which project they are, so we're going to discover that together after the session. I would like first to welcome Madame Fischer, the conseillère d'État chargée du département de l'économie et de l'emploi, to deliver a pitch on our collaboration.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Sustainable Finance Innovators, it's my great pleasure to open this post-Sustainable Finance Hack ceremony with a few short remarks on behalf of the Geneva government. We are living a period of very rapid change, and the COVID-19 pandemic has been acting as both an accelerator and disruptor of existing trends. Accelerator of digital adoption, as a larger part of our lives is now spent online. Disruptor, because so many business models need to be reinvented because of the virus and its consequences, but also because of fast technological change and the much larger threat posed by climate change. While there are now well-known methods to limit the spread of COVID, there is still no simple way to protect ourselves against the consequences of global warming and catastrophic biodiversity loss. Most importantly, when species are extinct, they are irremediably lost, often with far-reaching ecosystemic consequences. We have, in other terms, very little time to act if we want to avoid the worst of the consequences of our destruction of nature. We must therefore act swiftly and invest heavily in mitigating as well as regenerative solutions. The situation is clearly an immense challenge to humanity, but it also presents an incredible opportunity for the finance sector to help accelerating the transition to a sustainable circular economy. The momentum is clear. The integration of environmental, social, and governance factors, ESG factors, into investment portfolios is fast becoming a top priority. So is standardization of sustainability and work on taxonomies. This will allow to properly differentiate apples from oranges and fight efficiently against greenwashing. Financial centers are positioning themselves to take advantage of the tremendous market opportunities associated with this trend. In this context, it is normal that Geneva strives to consolidate its position as one of the global leaders. We do indeed have a few unique assets, such as a high concentration of top-notch financial players, but also the most active global governance ecosystem. On top, we can count on a vibrant civil society and world-class academic brainpower. And we should not forget the growing role of our thriving fintech, as well as digital trust scene. It is the role of Geneva as global center of governance to actively defend and advance the concept of digital responsibility. The ethical, democratic, and sovereignty implications, specifically in terms of data, concern every stakeholder, from individual users to fintech companies. So to sum it up, ladies and gentlemen, if we can get all those actors to work together, great things will happen. That's why the Canton of Geneva has been a very strong supporter of the Building Bridges movement since day one. Reskilling and open innovation will play a critical role in this transformation. As the participants in the Sustainable Finance Hackathons have demonstrated last weekend, a lot still needs to be accomplished. Your challenges were aiming to create bright and bold solutions which do associate purpose and regenerative value added. This is where collective intelligence is bound to make a big difference. Through crafting innovative digital commons, in the spirit of Nobel Prize winner Elinor Ostrom's groundbreaking work, we can accelerate progress and build new solutions for Geneva and for the world. The State of Geneva is proud to team up with Open Geneva because it believes in the potential of trailblazing coalitions. Bringing together different communities is crucial if we want to be inclusive and if we want to produce groundbreaking value added for planet and people. I'm very happy to see that you came together and that you broke the proverbial silos. In addition, I'm obviously proud to see that you teamed up with participants from all over the world. Congratulations, this is truly a new incarnation of the Geneva spirit. Finally, yet importantly, I'm looking forward to following the progress you will make over the coming months. In this context, it would be fantastic if you could present some of your most notable results at the next Building Bridges Week conference, which will most likely happen towards the end of 2022. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, warm thanks for your participation in this process. And to the organizers, congratulations for having managed this process so well. I wish you all an inspiring evening and an insightful panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fischer. Thank you for your address and your kind words. Before we go on, I want to say a big thank you. We thank the sponsors, but I think the most important thing is to actually thank the community and the people who participated tirelessly this weekend. So I think a lot of people in this room recognize themselves for being with us quite late on Saturday night. Congratulations, thank you so much. Nothing can happen when we're talking about open innovation without the people who are actually doing that. And this is, so maybe we should do a big applause to the participant of the hackathon. No, it's also a segue to introducing our keynote speaker, Matteo Rizzi. The reason is actually that in a hackathon, you get always some people who are a bit rebel. They want to see the world a different way, and they are going to really take action and do stuff in a way that actually there's a potential to change the world. A consensual person in a hackathon is less useful, I would say, than a rebel. So I want to introduce to you a true rebel who's been doing that for a really long time, Matteo Rizzi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good, even with mask is good. So, let's see if this works. It does. So stay with me, and with Game of Thrones, which I hope sounds familiar, because if it doesn't, I need to change the whole presentation, okay? And let's start by, who is this guy? Meaning me. I have a very weird combination. By the way, I'm a rebel, but I made peace with it completely. And I can say I'm a rebel because I come from a very heavily regulated industry. I worked 13 years for Swift, which, if we are in a finance hackathon, you're not supposed to ask what Swift does. It's a cooperative dealing with high-value payments all over the world. And after 13 years at Swift, I quit and I became an investor with several corporate venture capital and with sort of standalone venture capitalist. But I have also an entrepreneurship experience, and I want to mention Time Pledge because I built a not-for-profit that coaches African entrepreneurs for free all over Africa. So we're going to talk about three things. What happened in the fintech industry in the past 10 years, what is likely to happen in the next 10 years, and lastly, what I call the talent epiphany. Stay with me because it's 26 slides in now 16 minutes, okay? Let's go. So what happened in the past 10 years? You all remember that if you were there a little bit more than 10 years ago, and you were a bank, today you would say what King Baratheon in Game of Thrones is saying in this slide. He will say, I swear that winning over a throne is 1,000 times more difficult than, sitting on a throne is 1,000 times more difficult than winning one. Why? Because if you were a bank back then, you would not have imagined how many startups would have come and tried to eat your lunch. And I don't know, who remembers where he or she was on that Tuesday, 16th of September 2008? I was at Cybus. Cybus, the largest conference in the world before Money 2020 and plenty of others, came up. And everyone flew over from Cybus back to their banks because Lehman Brothers collapsed. And that was the beginning of a huge sort of earthquake in the financial industry space that gave birth of what it is the notion of fintech today. In other words, and in a single slide, we awoke a dragon. And that was the first reaction of the financial services incumbents and traditional players. They were saying, I'm not even questioning your honor, Madame la Startup. I am actually denying your existence. You can't be. Who are you coming to the stage without a tie and a suit and pretending you know better, right? So what happened then is that this happened. I suspect that this is a brilliant marketing move from Wells Fargo because this is actually the website of Wells Fargo back in the days. You see that little red square top left, and every single word of the Wells Fargo website is covered with startup trying to do the same small vertical thing that Wells Fargo in this case was doing, faster, cheaper, and or better. So there is actually the same slide with HSBC, and slowly every bank understood that it was a good sort of way to still stay in the presentations. That's why, but it's just an hypothesis. So, and all of a sudden, startups exploited the basic inefficiencies of the traditional players, but slowly understand that the best way was to collaborate. So today, that would be a commentary of a soldier back in the days. He would say, life is strange. Not many years ago, we were fighting as enemies, banks and startups, but we are not anymore. And this is the proof. Now, there are, of course, way more generic tech startups, incubators and accelerators, but there are 40 countries that have fintech incubators and accelerators worldwide. If that is not a sign of the world that changed, I don't know what is. So what is going to happen next? So to start with, there is a third wave. Actually, the word wave is not great to be used recently, but there is a third wave of non-financial players eating actually both startup and bank lunch, and they are called corporates. Why? Because now, with open data and the brilliant financial services regulation, there are non-financial players who can embed the financial services and through their existing channels do credit, insurance, payments, even without being regulated. So that's why I say that there are more seats at the table now in the financial services space, because corporates think of Booking.com or Netflix, to just mention the most sort of obvious ones. And these are a couple of numbers to give you an idea. The three sort of largest group of what we call embedded finance are the consumer lending, the insurance, and the payments. Think of, for example, when you go and buy your phone, the company can actually sell you an insurance to your phones there and then, and that is paid through your point of sales. There is no insurance involved. It's still like the Vodafone or the, I don't know, the Swiss, what is it? Whatever. The Swiss, thank you, that is involved. There is no financial services player. You're actually buying a financial product from a normal corporate, right? So that's how fast they are going to develop. Actually, there is a fault between 2020 and 2025, not 2021. Now, you might think, this is just for Western economies. This is not a global movement. In other parts of the world, in the emerging markets, for example, that won't be the case. Well, not exactly. This is a startup called Tap & Go in Kigali, Rwanda. By the way, I'm an investor with Bamboo Capital Partners that actually is a Swiss, Luxembourg-based fund, and we invest in Africa, seed and Series A. This startup has Oyster card or octopus card sounds familiar. Like in London or in Hong Kong, there are the cards with which you pay the public transportation, right? This startup has done the same for buses in Kigali. They have 2 million cards, 4 times the number of banking clients of the country. 4 times, 2 million cards. The moment the regulator will unlock this card to be able to do peer-to-peer payments and merchant payments, they will transform in an instant the life and the financial inclusion of the whole country. And they, today, are not a financial institution. And there is more. This is a part of a bigger presentation, and I just want to give here a few baskets of innovation where a collaboration between incumbents and fintech and innovators will actually bring solutions. One is financial inclusion. Clearly, GDP. It is McKinsey is saying that the GDP of the bottom billions economy will raise by 10% between now and 2030 if there will be a 25% increase in the financial inclusion of the population. Which means that, and we say financial inclusion not by saying they will need a bank account, they need to have a bank account, but they will need to be digitally enabled financial services. So it could be a mobile wallet. It doesn't need to be a bank account, of course. It could be an Uber driver with a wallet associated to it. But that's like a key driver for GDP growth. I don't need to mention that sustainability, ESG, and impact investing are a driver. You have been probably talking about it the whole weekend. I think that the world of pension and pension funds is going to be disrupted very soon because in many countries, and you guys are lucky, Switzerland, it might not be amongst them today, where pension schemes are actually not very sustainable. I'm Italian, if you haven't figured the accent yet, and in my country is typically the case. The gig economy. The gig economy is the best vehicle for embedded finance. Think of Uber drivers, for example. That's a perfect example. Or like the likelihood of what we call the super apps. So these are apps where they have the excuse of a service, for example, Uber, but all of a sudden they have leasing vehicles, insurance products, peer-to-peer payments, digital payrolls, you name it. And then in terms of infrastructure, there is banking won't be monolithic anymore. Now banking is composable, and you can actually build and fail rapidly new services by using many of the rails that the fintechs are building. And something that I'm really keen of, and I'm not talking about crypto or blockchain here, digital identity is going to be the key to actually give access to the broad, what I call the bottom billions. Giving them an identity, it will be step number 0 to include them. So that's why I think that in this type of digital identity infrastructure, innovation will be key. And there is more. I love this slide. It is all about culture. So I promise you, I will talk about the last 10 years, the next 10 years, and what I call the talent epiphany. And who knows David Ogilvy? Okay, David Ogilvy stands to like communication and media, like a Coco Chanel to fashion. Or I say, Ronaldo to football, the Cristiano one, the Portuguese one. And David Ogilvy said that talent, it is more likely to be found among nonconformists, dissenters, and rebels. So he used the word rebel back in the 1960s. And rebels are actually a specific type of talent, not superheroes, not people who has to be put in a pedestal at all. It is simply a class of resources that any company should pay attention to instead of treating them as a tolerable or an intolerable problem, because their capacity to link concepts that apparently are not linked and or their ability to think laterally and completely disrupt your current business is an opportunity that you really, really want to take. Why? Because you don't want to be the next Kodak, and you don't want to be the blockbuster who didn't sell to Netflix back in the 70s. Blockbuster was 3.5 billion at the top of their valuation, and it didn't make a $50 million deal with Netflix, and Netflix today is over 140 billion, and the rest is history. Behind all these stories, there are people who didn't match. Or there are people that were not able to be matched or to fit. That's why I call them the misfits in a corporation. And there is a story. So in 2008, we created within Swift something called InnoTribe. It might not ring a bell to any of you. Many, maybe, InnoTribe, never heard? Okay, so InnoTribe was the first ever fintech initiative, and it was built by Swift itself. We created it with 4 other people inside the company. We created the first global startup challenge, and the winner was TransferWise. TransferWise rings a bell? Revolut rings a bell? They won the year later. And then Mambu, and then the Currency Cloud, and all the unicorns that you see today in the nice chart, they passed through InnoTribe, and they won, statistically, the contest. On the top of it, we were doing a collaborative innovation with other financial services. So in 2012, we had the idea to build a fund within Swift to be able to invest in all these gems that we kept sort of finding in the community. It lasted 10 months and a lot of sweat and tears and blood, but I personally couldn't manage to convince anyone in Swift to build that fund. You don't want to know the number of that fund today, even by taking a small percent of those winners, right? So I left. And I left because I didn't want to stay in my comfort zone. And I left without a contract. And I left because I believed there was a way to invest in these startups, and the time was right back in 2013. And because I couldn't manage to do it from within, I did it from outside. So don't stay, you have the option. You'll always have the option to stay in the comfort zone, or you can get to a new one. And I promised I would talk about the fintech, the future, and the talent. And now I want to finish this presentation by saying that collaboration is not always a party with nice tricks and sweets and champagne. Sometimes there is a tension, there is a friction. You have to embrace that friction and make it work, because that friction is probably the best engine to move you forward. Thank you very much. Someone has to disinfect this.
Thank you very much, Matteo, for the presentation and for the pitch. I really hope it was a further sort of invitation to innovate beyond boundaries and across boundaries, and to be rebel a bit. This talk was also brought to us thanks to a partnership with EPFL Innovation. And yeah, important to say that EPFL Innovation has been a great partner in the last 2 years. So thank you, Matteo. Now, I want to invite on the stage on the panel Nicolas Mougeot, the head of global trends and ESG advisor at Crédit Agricole Indo-Suez, Marianne Vincent, CEO of Carbon for Finance, Stéphane Monnier, the Chief Investment Officer at Lombard Odier, Professor Salvatore Di Falco, Vice Dean for Research and Faculty Affairs at GSAM, and last but not least, the panel will be moderated by Nicolas Nigli, État de Genève. So you see, we put all our partners on stage, and now it's up to them to run the show. Good luck.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having trusted us with what is most important, with your time, and being here tonight for this panel closing the Sustainable Finance Hackathon tonight. It's brilliant to see so many of you. And I think Matteo's presentation truly has given me a simple mission statement for this panel. And this is to prove that we cannot judge a book by its cover. You know, we have suits, but there might be some rebel in all of us. And I think being part of the hackathon of the open innovation movement, challenging organizations from without and within, is something pretty inspiring. And we will hear from our 4 panelists here on how they did it, what they challenged within the hackathons. But again, first of all, thank you so much. It's late. I'm pretty sure most of you have spent time at the summit yesterday, at the Building Bridges Summit, probably have gone into the Building Bridges Week as well. And before I give this lady and those 3 gentlemen the floor, I'd like to ask 3 of you to step up and to give us a 20-second feedback on what you heard, which really inspired you either at the summit or today during Building Bridges Week, Day 1. Is there anybody who wants to share something with us? And don't be timid, please. So nobody has been at Building Bridges Day? Is this the first event you're attending? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll get back to you a bit later. Yeah, here we go. Breaking the ice. Gentlemen. Let me just join you here. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say that this event is very important because it's about bringing the financial sector together. And I believe that financing in nature is very important. And I think it's this conference that's the main important things that we have to do. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Yeah, here we go. Ah, there is somebody here. Excellent. So here we go. I know this gentleman. Salut.
It was like an arc-en-ciel. We had absolutely all colors. This morning I was in a meeting with regulatory people and pension funds, and we end up with a rebel. We heard all the colors, all the visions, and that's diversity which makes the world.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Here we go.
Thank you. Well, for me, it's very interesting because I work for an NGO, so I think there's not many over here. I work for Terre des Hommes Suisse. And it's very important for us to find out how to channel the funds, the financing. That's the whole topic we talk about here, is how to channel the funds where it's more needed. And we need them. And we're looking forward to have solutions from the private sector, and especially the financial sector, to channel funds towards the education of children around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Okay. So we are in it. Three sort of great takes to start with. and I'm now going to engage with the panel. I think it's really important to have this communication in between the room and the panel. And hey, don't hesitate to challenge them. No, that's getting the rebel out of you to grow, right? Here we go. So I would suggest, and I'm sure you can agree to this, we should go with and that's not terribly rebellish, we should go ladies first.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
I'm here for diversity. That's okay.
Excellent.
That's okay.
So Marianne, you are the CEO of Carbon for Finance.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Your hackathon challenge addressed both climate change and biodiversity loss at the same time. So a holistic approach to things, which in my opinion is really, really key. Looking at these two things as an integrated problem, why did you engage on this with an open innovation mindset? In other terms, what makes the Sustainable Finance Hackathon for you and for your team fit for purpose to address this very important question, or better said, these two very important questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. So maybe a few words about Carbon for Finance. So we're part of a group, Carbon 4, so we are climate experts based in Paris. We have been working with corporates for more than 15 years, calculating their carbon footprint and implementing action plans to reduce their emission and adapting to the climate-related events. And then in 2016, we created Carbon for Finance to bring this expertise to the financial world, try to have like more accurate data to make investment decisions. So we come from a climate expertise. We gather a lot of information, like physical, raw data. And it was a natural movement to develop a biodiversity database this year because the scientific community says we need to tackle the two issues together. Sometimes we say maybe for climate change we need to build some wind panels, but they will destruct a lot of forest and increase the land use. So we need to work on these two issues together, and sometimes we work in silos, so climate, ESG, and now biodiversity is quite complex. And so for us, it was a great challenge, try to see how you can compile these two databases together. And we had a great team, very enthusiastic people who understood the methodology and tried to optimize a financial portfolio with the climate change issue and trying to preserve biodiversity. And so it was very innovative. We see that it's new topic, biodiversity, and it's very important to tackle that because we're far beyond the planet boundaries. So it's a new topic for us. Now we have some indicators to quantify the biodiversity loss. And so I think the challenge was tackled by the team because they tried to propose something in very short time. So very happy to have participated to that.
Thank you so much. Are you happy with the result your team achieved?
In 24 hours, yeah, it was amazing results. I hope we won the challenge, of course, because it was great.
So 24 hours, is it a hackathon or is it an innovation sprint?
It's more an innovation sprint because, of course, we can develop some apps for everything after that.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'll get back to you, don't worry, don't worry. In fact, I should have warned you at the outset. It's not totally inconceivable at a certain stage you hear me coughing. But don't worry, it's not the sea thing. It's just in autumn when the air gets colder and drier, I have this, and it predates COVID a few years, so just don't worry, okay? Okay, great. To avoid mass exits and stuff like this. All right, I think we should move to Stéphane. Stéphane, Chief Investment Officer, Lombardier, thank you so much for being here with us on stage. Your hackathon challenge addressed culture change within your institutions. Could you talk about the motivation between Lombardier's engagement with open innovation to tackle the internal silo issue and how you see the evolving balance between competitiveness on the one side and cooperation, which is the heart of building bridges after all? Stéphane, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I think the challenge that we had in our institution at Lombard-Odier was not so much about a cultural issue with sustainability, because the company has been here for a very long time, and it has been very early in terms of thinking about sustainability. We love to give this example of Alexandre Lombard, who in 1841 was advising against investing in companies from the south of the United States because they were benefiting from the slavery economy. So that's a very long history. The issue that we have in my position is to find, first specialists that could work together as a team. We have a lot of specialists. The world of finance is made of very, I would say, experts in very specific fields. So we have, for example, equity analysts. Some are in the room today and have participated in the hackathon. They were trained at university very much on financial analysis, understanding company financial statements, eventually learning about certain industries. So maybe our pharmaceutical analysts come from the pharmacist background, for example. And then the issue of sustainability, can be dealt with, from people that are scientists in, the ecology, in the, maybe social issues, maybe on issues about, I would say, diversity in general, or governance, and so on. And the difficulty that we have is to make all these people work together. If I take the example of equity analysts, for example, people who study corporation, the issue we had is that some of them were very good in terms of knowledge of their industry and very good in terms of financial analysis when they come out of the universities, but they are not necessarily expert in issues about sustainability. And on the other hand, we have people that are very much well trained in sustainability issues, but they don't know much about financial statements, cash flow analysis, and those things. So the issue I was confronted with was that I have two types of expert, and I need to make them work together. And I have a dream, which is to be able to create a new type of analyst that will be trained with both background, in one person. And that, I think, that would be the perfect. This doesn't exist. We don't have university that train today financial analysts that are fully literate in sustainability issues, and that's what we will need for our industry. And we are not doing that necessarily because we are, I would say, good people or nice people. I would say what is very important for us, our mission as a corporation, is to protect and grow our client assets. And if we had this type of people, that will really allow us to reach our goal, because we think that the sustainability revolution is going to have a huge financial impact going forward. We have risk to manage, transition risk, litigation risk, maybe also physical risk, but there are also a lot of opportunities that those kind of new breed of analysts could allow us to seize for our client as opportunities.
Thank you so much, Stéphane. One more call of action here at Building Bridges 2021. Let's create the education we all need to essentially merge the two specialities and to make it one more complete package. But in the meantime, open innovation to challenge the silos within the institution. Thank you so much for that. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Let's move to Nicolas Mougeot, Head of Global Trends and ESG Advice at Crédit Agricole Indo-Suez. Thank you so much, Nicolas, for being with us tonight. I have to say, I have to confess, I just really love personally the challenge you brought.
Thank you very much.
It is because I'm a feminist. It is because I'm a father of girls. And I think it's just so important we look into how we address the gender issue within the context of asset management, wealth management, and your challenge really centered around that. And the other thing I really like here is, it is something that needs to be brought forward not just by women, but also by guys like you. So thank you so much for that. And
You're welcome.
Do you want to sort of give us a bit of an insight into why you think it's so important and how happy you are with the way your team worked at
Sure.
the hackathon? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. So, well, first of all, I could indeed start by thanking the whole team which work with me, and they're all here for a few of them, and like probably like some of them like watching us online. And I have to say also that like within Industries, we were thinking about what kind of challenges we wanted to address. I'm in charge of ESG advisory, so advising our clients on environmental, social, and governance issues, so it's very important. But we were almost certain that other people would also address that in one way or the other, for example, the impact of the carbon footprint of companies. But with Isabelle Jacob-Nebu, our head of wealth management, we thought that there was like an issue that we were confronting with. Like two statistics to bring you to the table to understand why we spoke about like women in wealth management over the 2 days in the hackathon. First of all, you only have 3 women out of 10 that are taking financial decisions. It's very low. Like if you take men, it's probably 9 out of 10. Second, well, what you also have to find out is that even in Switzerland, for example, women only manage to be able to have their own bank account without the consent of their husband in 1998. So just like 23 years ago. So it's not surprising that when we face women, very often they're not empowered in the financial decision. They don't necessarily dare to take a decision, and that can be pretty daunting to make an investment, to invest a significant share of your money. But that's more and more important because we see more and more women entrepreneurs, women who inherit money. For example, today we had like Marta Ortega, the heir of the Zara Group, Inditech, who has become the CEO of the group. So we see more and more women taking the power, but not necessarily enough women being really empowered in the financial decision. This is really what we wanted to tackle. And what there was one example one parallel that we made a few times across like the more than 24 hours that we all spent together is you want to get fit, you go to the gym. But if you have one ultimate goal, say for example, you want to win a marathon, what do? You don't just go to the gym, you take a coach. And that's actually the decision the solution that we found, that if we want to get more women empowered in the financial decision, they probably also need to have financial coach. So when we talk about financial advisor, we think that there is a big change of mindset that needs to happen, and that financial advisor need to become a financial coach to really accompany the women in the financial decision. And that can also come up with like other solution, for example, a financial coach app that could be lunch for women so that they can discuss like a number of ideas and to break the ice and to be able to take a financial decision.
Thank you so much for that. Economic history is pretty clear. Each and every one society that treats women well and gives them opportunities is going to do much better in the medium and long term. So I think you're really contributing to this, and I think we should definitely keep on thinking about how to develop these apps, and indeed we should all take coaches. I certainly agree. I've also been told that I have to have my mic closer to my mouth, because otherwise I'm not heard. I'm not sure it's the case, but I'm going to obey anyway. There is a limit to rebelness, I guess. Professor Salvatore Di Falco, Vice Dean of Research and Faculty Affairs, GSAM. Thank you so much, Salvatore, for being with us tonight. It's interesting. GSAM is really positioning itself as a hotbed for open innovation. are you of the view that hackathons are indeed important for not just companies, but also for students and career development generally? And if yes, how can it make a positive difference in student skill sets and obviously in their employment perspectives? Because this clearly matters. Salvatore, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's me that say thank you, because it's a true privilege to be with you tonight and share some thought on these issues. Our faculty, the Geneva School of Economics and Management, is the youngest faculty of the University of Geneva. And we have, as areas of expertise, we've been investing a lot on sustainability, analytics, and also governance, of course. Going to your questions, well, we like, in a sense, to, first of all, facilitate this platform as much as possible. On the other hand, you know, the university also has always a kind of scientific objective, and to some extent, the kind of overarching scientific objective in trying to understand what this tool can actually teach us. So what we can actually make out of this tool called hackathons, how we can eventually use this tool to improve our curricula, how we teach things at the university, and having in mind the objective of supporting the development and the generation of sustainable entrepreneurs, how this tool can actually be, you know, of use for that. So in a sense, there is a kind of a scientific interest to begin with. On top of that, there are also the things we know about an environment like an hackathon, which is an environment where you have the diversity, the synergies in the diversities, the groups with people with different backgrounds. We interact with each other in order to generate what you call the collective intelligence, and I like to stress also collective action as a result of that as well, and solve a problem which everybody wants to solve. So there is the group dimension is a very important dimension, because if there is one thing we do know very well is that we learn a lot from the others. So even the most brilliant students always learn from the others, learns from the interaction with the others. So there's so much power in the interaction with the others. And if there is something, unfortunately, we learned the hard way with the pandemic, when everybody was at home and we started teaching online. Yes, of course, you can still go through the material and do the things, and you do your best. On the other hand, the students are missing a very important component of their learning experience, which is the classroom, which is the environment, the interaction with the others. There is so much we can achieve by interacting and learning from the others. So the reason why university may be looking into a tool like this is also because there is the clear understanding that an environment like an hackathon is an environment where the learning experience improves. Of course, there are different things you learn, right? But I mean, there is also a set of soft skills, the interaction with the other, how you work with the other. These are things which normally we don't necessarily teach in a very effective way. And even though our faculty is moving, very much in that direction, I think that in a sense there is so much we can do, and we can enrich the curricula of our faculty, and I would say in general the university, by understanding these tools and the interaction of these tools. So the contamination, the spillover of a group is incredibly important in what people then they learn. Yeah.
Thank you. We talk here contemplating about the future of education, essentially, which has to become much more multimodal indeed. And that's if I read you correctly on that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's moving into a world where you don't only have the classic learning experience, in the class, but also you have more hands-on, real-life interactions where, if I may add, you interact with an economic ecosystem. And again, going from the learning, what students can get out of this? I mean, this is a wonderful opportunity for students to interact with with a true, real economic ecosystem. And on the other hand, the economic system has lots to gain from the interaction with this new generation, incredibly smart students, which in a sense, they can be important resources for society as a whole, but for the companies as well.
Yes, the new normal is collaborative and it's a two-way street, very clearly. Let me get back to you, Marianne. If I'm not mistaken, you represent a Paris-based organization, but you choose to come to Geneva, so we are delighted about that, to engage into this hackathon, to engage into building bridges, and I obviously understand you're pretty interested in your business in data, and Geneva and the international Geneva, as we call it here, is full of data troves, data for humanity. Could you share with us how you see your next steps engaging with this ecosystem? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. So we're Paris-based, but we've got an international business model. So we have clients in the US, in Europe, in Asia. I think it was very interesting for us to interact with the Geneva ecosystem, because there are companies, students, and universities. And we have financial clients, but we work with NGOs, and we are making a lot of partnership with business schools or engineer schools, because I graduated from business school a long time ago, but I still go there. And when you do a finance class, you attend a finance class, you manipulate financial data, you learn how to do some cash flows and assess the creditworthiness of a company, but you never manipulate extra financial data. And that's how you end up with either a financial analyst or ESG analyst. But I think it's very important at the beginning that when you're a student and you take a finance class, you have some case study when you have a carbon constraints directly in your mindset, saying, if I look at the financial risk, I should include the climate risk or biodiversity loss. Because in the short term and very short term, that's how you need to assess the financial performance of a company going forward. And that was interesting for us to have like a very cosmopolitan and mixed team, to have different mindsets and to look at the data. But I think it's very important for us is to have an impact. That's why we're a private company, but that's why we work with NGOs and with schools and universities, because for us, you need to understand the big topic, and data is a way to understand the world, to quantify how we are and where we are and how to move forward. And that was we joined this hackathon because I think there was a good mix of people to understand the ecosystem.
Thank you so much for that. Stéphane, Lombardier is obviously one of the very great tradition, old Geneva bank, old but very innovative. And to me, what you've been doing by engaging into this hackathon as well is really to show that you're forward-looking with this. And it seems to me it's very much at the heart of building bridges to get into this collaborative, open innovation mindset, to join forces on some things. Given your position in this institution, how important is it for you, for Geneva and for Switzerland to take a lead on these issues? Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I confirm, Lombardier is never challenged on its tradition. I think if people knew Lombardier better, they will understand there is a lot of innovation at Lombardier. So you're absolutely right about that. Maybe, to answer your question, I think, I come from the investment world. And in investment, all the jobs are extremely specialized. And the best environment that you can have, let's say in a trading room, all trading rooms are very much open space, right? Because what you want, if you are the head of the dealing room, you want all the traders to hear what the others are doing, because you have to react very fast, to learn from your colleagues. And I think that very often when you present the finance industry, you think that Indosuez, Rothschild, Pictet, Lombardier, I would say UBP, Safra Sarrazin, all the actors that you have in Geneva are competitors. But I view it a little bit differently. I think our industry is going to be challenged a lot, and maybe the true competitors of Lombardier are not Indosuez, Rothschild, or Pictet, but maybe it's Amazon, or maybe it is Ping An in China, or someone else, right? So from that perspective, I think everything that you learn when you work in finance, you learn it from someone else. And whether this person is in your company or is in a company, on the other side of the street, it doesn't really matter. I think, for example, we are firms of different size, and there are much bigger firms and there are smaller firms. And sometimes, if some of those companies can cooperate together, you can create an ecosystem, for example, in Geneva, which will be much better for the overall community. So that's, I would say, the number one. And I think because we also talk about, building bridges and things like that, what is very important to build in Geneva is an ecosystem where I would say sustainable finance will thrive. Because if you look at this industry in Geneva, I think the finance industry is employing 35,000 people. It's creating some wealth. It's first for the clients, of this industry, but also for the employees and for local ecosystem. And it's very important that this opportunity to develop a pool of expertise in Geneva is made in order to ensure the future of this financial place. And this will be only done if we all cooperate together, as opposed to have a selfish attitude and say, whether Lombardier is going to win the race, or Indosuez is going to win the race, or Rothschild is going to win the race. So that's my approach. I think everything I know, I've learned it from someone else, and I'm happy to share. And I think it's also a sign of confidence. If you share your knowledge with others, you will get things from the others, you will learn more, but also it means that you know already quite a lot because you are not ashamed of sharing it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I think it's really great because one feels this spirit of cooperation in your words. And this is also, to a certain extent, the signal that nobody can, at the end of the day, win on its own. Nobody can be great on its own. We need an ecosystem. And it's the case in finance, and it's the case for all of us on this planet. And perhaps we should soon, our aim should soon be to stop talking about sustainable finance simply because it's going to be called finance. Because sustainability is going to be an essential part of it, I guess. So talking about the future, Nicolas, Matteo sort of started his presentation with the past and then the present and the future, the 10 next years. If we have this movement you're pushing in your institution, and we empower women in terms of financial decisions, SDG 5 really gets implemented big time. What kind of picture do we see in 5 to 10 years? What's your foresight take on the future if we do exactly, all of us, what you've started here? Thank you so much.
Well, I would say it's a pretty broad question, but it's interesting because when we talk about empowering women in their financial decision, indeed, very quickly you think about like SDG number 5, so basically gender equality. But when we were working all together as a team, we discussed very long time and we had arguments, and I'm sure that my team knows what I'm talking about, is the why. The why, so basically why are we, what is the why of the team, what do we want to achieve? And the why we come up with, and that we all agree on in the team at the end, was to make the world a better place. It's pretty broad, bold, but it's definitely something that we can achieve partially by empowering women in their financial decision, because very often women don't just invest in terms of, because of return, of risk, but they look at the purpose, the value-based proposition that the company can offer. They are very much more inclined to invest with in some fund with high ESG rating. So basically, if you have more and more women investing, you will channel money towards like companies that do better for the world itself. So it's not the only solution, but that can definitely be one of the big force.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that broad question, but a broad answer as well. Brilliant. Salvatore, up to you. My definition of building bridges essentially is this is a PPP squared, public-private partnership for planet, people, and prosperity. That's how I define it. The hackathon brings all of those stakeholders together as well. You have people from international organizations, from the industry, from civil society, obviously from academia. We spoke about students, but there are professors involved as well. How do you see this, the importance of this happening in the context of building bridges? But also, how do you look at this from an intergenerational point of view? Because probably you spoke about your faculty being sort of slightly younger than the average. Is that also something we can really play when it comes to the link between the younger generations and the more mature generations, and everybody benefits? What's your take on this?
Thanks. This is a wonderful question, and the intergenerational issue is clearly, very central in sustainability. And to me, this is like, giving the opportunity to take agency of the future. In this environment, by setting up that question, you take agency of the future. You shape the future where the future we live in. That's the intergenerational dimension of it. But in a sense, there is this opportunity of setting up the question and finding the solution for the future and for the people who will be in the future. So I see that as a very strong element. On the other hand, as I said before, there is this incredible opportunity which is provided by the interaction, across generations. It's something that doesn't happen normally, and we talk about the silos of science, of expertise, but of course there is also the silos of the generation, and again, this is an environment where those generations, in a sense, they work together and they are together to take agency of the future. So I find that as an incredibly important thing, that this exercise, as we call them in university, may do. And on the other hand, what we can do for the initiative, to be honest, I came here also to take some mental notes, because I have, university, we have very much to learn out of this. I mean, we are part of it, but we probably need to invest ourselves more in the initiative. And in a sense, for me, one of the things I would like to, go back on tonight with something in my head, to think, what can the university actually do in order to support this movement, this initiative? Because of course, there are lots of things the university can do in terms of training, in terms of creating the platform, and creating the, providing some ideas for solutions, and the data, the evidence elsewhere. In a sense, you also look for case studies somewhere else, right? You look for things which may be happening somewhere else, and in a sense, from the university, you always have that very privileged position to have that kind of panoramic view of what's going on all across the globe. But in a sense, to me, is also really, really into trying to understand how we can facilitate the process from our side to, I'm not, it's always, you always get the kind of ivory tower kind of thing. And to some extent, it's, I wouldn't say it's true, but it's a comfortable place, so you can just stick with your routine, your research, your questions, your students, and then, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to try to understand what actually we can do.
Wonderful, wonderful. you know, professors, vice dean comes and sort of says, well, I'm humble enough. I want to keep growing, keep learning. That's a huge message you've just given and shared with us. Thank you so much for that. We have very little time, I think, but I'd like to ask you a sort of a 30-second last question, and for once it's going to be one size fits all, so you're going to have all of you the same, and it really is for us to get as much feedback as we possibly can get. We are now in Building Bridges 2.0. Obviously, we are going to start thinking about Building Bridges 3.0. If you would have a magic wand, we started with Game of Thrones, and we probably are ending up with Harry Potter here. But if you have a magic wand, what would you improve? What would you want to see accelerated? And we obviously start once again with you, Marianne.
As you say, it was a great innovation sprint. If you want to move to the hackathon, I think, and because we're from the data world, I think it would be great if you have like a data scientist or data engineer to try to implement in action, I don't know, a database or an app, some of the ideas that have been proposed during this hackathon.
Thank you very much indeed. Merci beaucoup. Stéphane.
Maybe my wish would be that Geneva creates, through partnership between the government, between the private sector, and with academia, an ecosystem where it could lead in sustainable finance.
We are working on it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Stéphane. And Nicolas.
Well, Building Bridges' aim is to build big bridges between finance and NGO. Maybe there's one missing bit, which is entrepreneur, which could be put more upfront, and that are part of the solution. It's not just, the discussion should not simply be between NGO, government, and finance, but we need to see some clean tech companies, for example, brought forward to show that the solutions that are here and that we can invest in and use as well.
Merci beaucoup. Note taken. Salvatore?
Well, I was thinking about the sustainable entrepreneurs indeed as a very important component to it, and I just, gonna just echo what has been already said. Indeed, try to make those bridges, build the bridges and make them stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think is what I would like to see.
Okay, and I would like you all to offer them a huge round of applause. And with that, Thomas, I give you back the floor, or am I not? Probably yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, all panelists. I saw you were opening questions to the room, and I got stressed because, we are running out of time.
You can handle that.
Yeah. Okay, you saved my life by not opening questions to the floor. Over cocktail, we have a great cocktail. We invested a lot in the cocktail. You will have time to build bridges.
We started getting into the room, so it's back to him now.
So, Open Geneva has a culture of actually not having a jury and not finding winners, but still what we do is we always want to have our coup de cœur, our favorite projects, and actually we're going to present 3 projects, and I want to welcome Fabio Sofia, the president of Sustainable Finance Geneva, to help me show these great projects. They were voted by the participants of the hackathon, so actually there's no jury. It's sort of like collective intelligence. And yes, Fabio, please come on stage.
I have really an easy role, right?
You have a super easy role of make it simple and quick so we can enjoy in cocktail.
So it's
I'm just going to press the button and then you read what you see. And
I take 2 seconds because I remember in 2019 when Thomas and Nicolas came with the idea of hackathon and we brought this to the group deciding if that could be a good idea, I think we had to explain, right, what was a hackathon, because there was absolutely no idea what that could be, and they call it the machin, the truc. And now it's something that happens, and I see you doing this with this way of doing it. I think it's very interesting to keep doing this, because it brings values that were not actually there a few years ago.
Actually, I'm not sure if everyone in the room knows what a hackathon is at this stage. But let's discuss that over cocktail. Okay, so we're going to do, for sake of time, we have prepared the videos of the pitch session from Saturday. So Fabio is going to introduce the winners. When I press the button, winners, it's coup de cœur, there's no winner. And we're going to just pass the video, and then we go to the next one.
So I have to read at the same time of everyone. Okay. I'll read.
No, you don't have to. You just read the title of the project.
I read the title. Okay.
Okay.
It's here,
ready?
right? Yeah.
Okay, I'll press the button now.
Where is it?
Challenge 4.
Challenge 4. So now casting CO2 emission intensity for decarbonized equity portfolios. So we need to.
So I guess if I press here, it's going to start.
All right, everybody. Say hi to Bob. And because it's 2 minutes, bye, Bob. All right, so basically, in short, we're trying to get this message across of how to predict CO2 emissions from previous emissions and companies' 10K reports. So just as a quick overview of what we're dealing with here, we see at CO2 emissions at time 0 and time 1 and the overall change. And then from those 10K reports, we see that there's an abstract number of variables that kind of coincide with what their emission targets are. So again, if you don't know, a TACAN is an annual report that's published by companies mandated by the SEC or Securities and Exchange Commission. And each one of these SARs has developed a way of connecting their, basically the report with these numbers. So again, like I said before, the CO2 emissions with whatever information is relevant. And this is all the text. So much fun, you guys. We love this. All right, and Claudio, can you continue?
Okay, so we developed a numerical tool that can interpret and analyze and process the data and give prediction about the emission of CO2, the next emission of CO2. And in particular, we focused on classification problems, so decrease or increase in emission of CO2. And then we hope, can you go in the next slide? So we hope, of course, in the future to give a more accurate and quantitative prediction. And the results were good because classification problem, we managed to obtain a precision of a bit less than 80%. So we can predict with a good precision whether the amount of CO2 will decrease and increase. And of course, this is a motivation for industries to decrease the amount of emitted CO2 in order to receive more money from the investors. So thank you very much.
So you see, Nicolas, when you play with the microphone, what it means. Okay, next one.
So challenge 2. Women in wealth management.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So 10 out of, sorry, rewind. So out of 10 households, only 3 have women participating in the financial decisions. This is not surprising, as they only could open their bank account by themselves in Switzerland in 1998. But it is also a pity because we know that women, when they invest, have higher returns, invest more sustainably, and they also have a bigger impact. So our goal is to empower women in their financial decision to make the world a better place. You may ask yourself, how do we do that? And it's like how you tackle any big challenge in your life. Imagine you have to run a marathon. What would you do? You'd hire a coach, sorry.
What is our solution? The bank advisor must evolve into a financial coach. This starts first with the setup of individual goals from the assessment of current knowledge and where do they want to grow. Second, propose financial teaching, one-to-one coaching, webinar, mock, podcast, whatever. Third, propose IT tools to support and empower women making their own investment decision and assess by themselves the impact. In addition to that, we'd like to create an ecosystem between themselves through dedicated events and much more.
So we have a coaching solution to empower women in the financial decision, which is financially sustainable, which is replicable, and which is inclusive. And remember, behind every single great woman, there might be a man as well, who also needs financial advice and a financial coach. So vote for us for making the world a better place.
Last but not least.
So challenge 9, the blockchain-based nature stewardship.
Coral reefs are highly endangered due to climate change, overfishing, and pollution. But the sustainable finance community is frustratingly underfunding their protection. Only 1/100th of 1% of climate finance spending goes towards coral reefs. Gain Corals offers 2 blockchain-enabled solutions to fund coral reef preservation and restoration by turning donors into investors and stakeholders into stewards. Here's how it works. Donors put money in a decentralized smart contract, and that money is held until the coral reef reaches a certain milestone of biodiversity. The local community collects data and implements best practices for caring for the reefs and receives money accordingly. We use a novel form of data gathering and analysis called metagenomics, a technology used to sequence DNA, which has decreased in price significantly since it was invented in the early 2000s. First, the local communities regularly collect water samples from the ocean. Next, the DNA of the microorganisms floating in the water is sequenced to estimate the biodiversity of the reef microbiomes. Donors can be confident that their money is delivering results because the communities receive money only once the biodiversity milestones have been reached. Gain Corals then issues governance tokens to donors, giving access to voting rights and future project participation priority. Those governance tokens can then be sold in the secondary market, giving the donors return, turning them into investors. The second part of our project is called NF Reef. We encourage the local community to take pictures of the coral reefs and use our platform to create non-fungible tokens to sell on the open market, creating another source of financing. With Gain Corals, investors and stewards can come together to keep the ocean clean for future generations.
Thank you, Fabio, for doing a great job. No, I think it shows support of SFGS. Thank you for your kind words on trying to explain what a hackathon is. I think most of it is proof is in the pudding. You know, you actually know really what a hackathon is when you go and you experience. And so we're looking forward to having you.
Yeah, and SFG is more as a platform where people can come and do the stuff, and you're one of the members, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So, thank you, Fabio. Now, this is the last slide, I believe. Beyond the hackathon, everyone is always, especially the funders like Canton of Geneva, what's next? You know, what's next? Well, actually, it's already happened. All the experience was on Friday and Saturday, but still we plan a bit of next steps. And actually, before Building Bridges 2022, we will be holding with the University of Geneva and United Nations Institute for Training and Research a Geneva Trialogue on the 17th of March 2022, and we're going to organize a workshop on open innovation and sustainable finance. Needless to say, that is for the project, whether they went for coup de cœur or not, this is an important milestone for presenting what you've been doing since in the next coming months. No pressure, but it would be great if we see some advancement. And Also during the Open Geneva Festival in March, we are going to organize what we call a challenge shaping workshop. I think a lot of companies and organizations don't really know clearly how to set up a challenge. And we want to spend some time, probably a bit more than half a day, with all the companies and organizations who want to think of what kind of great challenge it could solve with open innovation, to come together with us and to get ready with a challenge by the end of March, so we can get set up for the next hackathon during Building Bridges 2022. Thank you very much. We can, for the companies who want to actually already register for the shaping workshop, there's a QR code and you can just go ahead and post your idea. Thank you very much and cheers. Yeah, now it's time for a cocktail.